Over the past year, student loan forgiveness has been top of mind as inflation pushed households to their financial limits, and President Joe Biden endeavored to bring one of his most popular campaign promises into reality. Today, we're digging into some of the major wins for the student debt forgiveness movement in 2022, a few of the setbacks, what could lie ahead for borrowers in 2023, and why, even if you're debt-free, you should be invested in how this all plays out. But first, let's get on the same page about why people take on student loan debt.
Higher education is probably one of the most stable indicators of social mobility, and one could say a ticket to long-term financial security and stability.
Finneba R. Addo, PhD, is an associate professor of public policy at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. She has been studying the causes and consequences of rising student loan debt for more than 10 years, and recently co-authored a book examining the racial disparities in student loan debt.
Not only do we see the necessity of a college education to get an entry-level job that pays a livable wage, but also the need to kind of return to college, get a master's degree, get an additional certificate, maybe even pursue professional degrees through graduate education in order to continuously ensure that you have stable economic foundation within our society and have a competitive wage.
Addo regards 2022 as a major turning point for conversations about federal student loan forgiveness.
We have President Biden announcing his Biden plan. That was the first time that we have an inclusive or a stated proposal for debt cancellation. But as student debt became central both to the presidential election and then was incorporated into the COVID-19 packages, especially with regard to the moratorium on federal student loan payments, it really became something that the Biden administration could not hide from and had to address.
However, she's concerned that legal and partisan complications could threaten the future of this progress.
We've seen several lawsuits being filed across multiple states, largely driven by Republican politicians who are against debt cancellation.
Nebraska, Missouri, Arkansas, Iowa, Kansas, and South Carolina have come together to legally challenge Biden's student loan debt relief plan. They're arguing that sweeping loan debt forgiveness would hurt their state economies, and that the Biden administration lacks the legal authority to go through with the plan. And on November 14th, the U.S. 8th Circuit Court of Appeals in St. Louis issued an injunction against Biden's relief plan. But the Biden administration had already stopped taking relief applications a few days prior, after a Texas federal judge considering another case challenging the plan declared the program unconstitutional. Now, all eyes are on the Supreme Court, which has agreed to hear oral arguments in the suit brought by the 6 states in February 2023.
These lawsuits will continue into the new year, and the Biden administration will have to be steadfast in their efforts to counter the many counter arguments. We can look towards the pandemic as a unique situation which put a lot of economic burden on a lot of households, including a lot of households who have student loan debt. And that should be reason enough to think about why we should not be restarting payments on federal student loans, but also thinking about broader debt cancellation for households who are hit by these macroeconomic forces that really make it hard to recover over the long term. And this is the moment in which we need our government to kind of step up and assist households that have significant amounts of debt burdens.
It's clear that these legal battles aren't going anywhere anytime soon. But what other obstacles could 2023 bring for the movement towards student loan forgiveness?
The biggest obstacle is going to be keeping it at the top of the policy agenda. There is just so much happening right now within our society, but we can address multiple issues at once and push our politicians, our policymakers to not forget about the borrowers who are still struggling, who have yet to receive debt cancellation, to ensure that the administration continues to deliver on their promise and continues to fight in the courts against any challenges that continue to arise against debt cancellation.
Even if you're not personally navigating the burden of student loan debt, Addo believes that how we view the necessity of higher education and the cost it can involve has a ripple effect that could eventually bring the issue to your doorstep.
Higher education contributes so much to our society. Higher education is not just about educating individuals. There's a lot of research and development. And in many societies around the country, higher education is where healthcare happens. That's where we have our doctors and where people get their medicine and have their chronic conditions treated. Higher education, especially where flagship universities are located, it's the largest employer. So we start to divest from these. We're not only impacting education, we're impacting the labor market. And so if we think about higher education and its contributions, not to just one individual, but what the contributions that higher education makes to the overall community, as well as what people who attend higher education contribute to our society, then we can see this as something that we collectively should be investing in, and not just one individual investing in, and then also bearing the cost and the burden of that decision to do so for the rest of their lives.